You spent $250 million chasing a fairy tale, and now, surprise, you're waking up in a nightmare. Mark Webb directed. Rachel Ziegler as Snow White, Gal Gadot as the Queen. Big names, big buzz, bigger budget, somewhere between $240 to $270 million. And what did it earn? A measly $183.1 million worldwide. Let me break that down for you. You burned through a mountain of cash and didn't even come close to the $500 million you needed to break even. That's not a swing and a miss. That's swinging blindfolded in a hurricane. This wasn't just a financial flop. It was a critical wipeout too. The audience didn't show up. The critics didn't care. And the nostalgia you banked on? Dead on arrival. Why? Because you took a story that was once beloved, iconic, and stripped it of its soul trying to chase relevance. You forgot the golden rule. Don't fix what isn't broken unless you actually know how to fix it. Disney doesn't just make movies. Disney prints dreams. But this was a counterfeit. Glossy on the outside, hollow inside. You gambled with a legacy, hoping the name Snow White would carry the weight of your choices. But names don't save you. Numbers do. Next time you want to play the hero, make sure you're not writing the villain's ending, because in this story, you didn't just lose the magic. You lost the mirror, and it's telling you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. You know what happens when you chase box office gold with a half-baked vision and a legacy name? You get burned. Snow White. 2025, you had the director, Mark Webb, you had the stars, Rachel Ziegler and Gal Gadot. You had the brand, Disney. What you didn't have? A plan that respected the audience's intelligence, or the original magic. Let's talk numbers. You want numbers? I love numbers. Opening weekend, $43 million domestic, $44.3 million international. Grand total, $87.3 million. Now, I know what fairy tale you thought you were living in, but in the real world, that's not a win. That's one of the lowest openings for a Disney live-action remake in the last decade. You dropped a production budget north of $240 million, maybe even $270 million when all the marketing smoke cleared. And yet, you grossed just $183.1 million worldwide. You didn't just miss the target, you missed the damn arena. The break-even point was around $500 million. That's not a guess, that's basic math. And you came up hundreds of millions short. That's not underperformance, that's a crash landing. But hey, maybe money isn't everything, right? Maybe the critics loved it? Wrong again. You rewrote a classic, but forgot to write a compelling reason to care. You buried the heart of the story under buzzwords and broken promises. You tried to modernize a tale that's already timeless, and in doing so, made it forgettable. What you delivered wasn't bold. It wasn't progressive. It was pandering. You didn't build a reimagining. You built a PR disaster with a side of CGI. The audience didn't show up. The magic didn't show up. The only thing that did, reality. And here's the kicker. Disney doesn't get to fail quietly. When Disney falls, it makes headlines. It shakes stock. It rattles confidence. You don't just lose money, you lose momentum. You made the mistake of thinking that a name, Snow White, could sell itself. That the nostalgia of the original could be stretched, twisted, and Frankensteined into something new without any soul. But nostalgia without substance? That's just an echo. And echoes fade. So what now? You can keep remaking magic in a lab, or you can remember how you made people feel in the first place. You want to win again? Then stop treating these stories like assets, and start treating them like what they are, legends. And if you can't do that, then step aside. Because this was never about the fairest of them all. It was about who could face the mirror and own the truth. Let's talk critics. Because if you thought the box office was brutal, wait till you see the reviews. Rotten Tomatoes, 43%. That's not just unfavorable. That's a vote of no confidence. That's the cinematic version of a rejection letter, with your name on it in bold storytelling, sloppy character development, thin execution, all over the place. You tried to reimagine a classic and ended up turning it into a cautionary tale, your own. The emotional arc? Flat. The charm? Gone. The characters, especially the lead, were written with so little nuance. You'd think they came from a first draft no one dared to edit. The kind of writing that mistakes modern for shallow and bold for hollow. And the worst part? You did it with the world watching. Critics weren't just disappointed, they were disillusioned. That's a different kind of failure, one that sticks, one that spreads. Because when the critics lose faith, the audience doesn't just hesitate. They walk away. And once they're gone, you don't get them back with apologies. You get them back with respect, with quality, with truth. This is the legacy of your Snow White, not the glass coffin, the cold reception. You didn't reinvent the fairy tale. You repackaged it, stripped it of its heart, shoved in a checklist, and expected applause. Instead, you got silence. Or worse, mockery. You had one job: tell a story worth telling, not one that panders, not one that preaches, one that inspires. Instead, you gave them a mirror and hoped they wouldn't look too closely. Well, they did. And what they saw was the fairest flop of them all. But this wasn't just a box office flop or a critical misfire. This was a PR meltdown dressed in designer armor. Before a single ticket was sold, the film was already bleeding. Controversy wasn't an accident. It was baked into the foundation. And when the cracks formed, the world didn't look away. It leaned in. First, the casting. You took one of the most iconic ensemble dynamics in cinematic history, the Seven Dwarfs, and replaced them with CGI and a lineup that erased the very community that made those roles what they were. Inclusion isn't a buzzword you sprinkle on a press release. It's something you understand or you stay the hell away from. Then came the press tour. And let's be honest, it wasn't a tour, it was a demolition. Your lead actress, the face of this so-called reimagining, took to the mic like it was open season on the original, mocking the 1937 classic, belittling its legacy, dismissing the very story millions fell in love with. You want to update the fairy tale? Fine, but don't spit on the crown while you do it. That's not bold. That's branding suicide. The backlash wasn't just backlash, it was backdraft, igniting every spark of doubt your audience already had. Boycotts, trending hashtags, millions of voices saying the same thing. You don't get to ruin what we loved and expect us to pay for it. You alienated your core fans, you disrespected your foundation, and you did it all while the cameras were rolling. This wasn't Snow White's curse, it was yours, and you brought it on yourself. You thought Snow White was just another movie? Turns out it was the canary in the coal mine. And it stopped singing loud and early, because now, even Disney is flinching. The commercial nosedive of this film didn't just cost money, it cost momentum. It rattled the mouse. And when Disney hesitates, you know it's serious. They've slammed the brakes. Reports say the live-action remake of Tangled, On Ice, other projects, quietly shelved. The playbook that once turned animations into billion-dollar gold is now under the microscope. And suddenly those glossy remakes don't look like magic. They look like risk. Because when you strip the soul from the stories that built your empire, eventually, the audience strips away their loyalty. You don't get 9 lives in this business. You get one, and you just wasted yours chasing a mirror that refused to lie. And if you're watching this and thinking someone needed to say it, then don't just sit there. Like it, share it, spread it, because truth deserves a bigger audience.